Hi, good afternoon, everyone.
Oh, ready?
Hello, hello. Well, welcome. There are only a handful of people who I don't know. They're probably friends of my dad. I'm Larry, his oldest son. That's Lance over there, his youngest son. And I saw Lindsay here earlier. Yeah, there he goes. All right. And where did Faye end up? Oh, Faye's walking around the couch. Okay, so on behalf of our family, we wanted to welcome everybody here today for my dad's celebration of life. And, I think everybody knows that he is just an avid Cal fan. So this was the first thing that came to mind. We weren't sure, okay, what are we going to do with a Cal theme? And I think it was Taz, my wife, who just said, well, let's just have it on campus. So we checked with the Cal Alumni House, and the first thing they asked me was, well, are you an alumni? And do you have a membership to California Alumni Association? I had to dig up a card from 1979. But finally found that, got the reservation, got everything organized, and here we are today. So I just wanted to kick this off by inviting Lance up here, where he will just give us a short invocation.
I'm not sure how.
Well, as you heard, I'm Lance, the youngest son, and there are a lot of people I haven't seen in decades. So you guys all pretty much sound the same and look the same, just a little bit older. So I think somebody would say the same thing about me as well. First of all, want to continue to thank Larry. He really does take over the oldest son role and all the responsibilities that come with that. And to the point of where, he gets to the point where he needs some help. Now, I don't need any help, but he has no time otherwise for doing this 25 hours a day. So just between everything else that he does, we've had a few things happen over the past few years, and he's taken on the responsibility of that. So that's the good thing about being a youngest, and you kind of just don't have to do anything. So anyway, so when my dad ended up in Hawaii, I didn't know where he was in relation to his walk with God and Jesus, and so I tended to be the one that's got more of the tilt toward there. So I just wanted to share the scripture with them that I shared with them. Some of you may be familiar with Matthew 20. It's subtitled "The Parable of the Workers in the Vineyard." So those of you who don't hear scripture too much, you get a treat of some scripture today. So, for the kingdom of heaven is like a landowner who went out early in the morning to hire workers for his vineyard. He agreed to pay them a denarius for the day and sent them into his vineyard. About 9 in the morning, he went out and saw others standing in the marketplace doing nothing. He told them, "You also go and work in my vineyard, and I will pay you whatever is right." So they went. He went out again about noon, and about 3 in the afternoon, and did the same thing. About 5 in the afternoon, he went out and found still others standing around. He asked them, "Why have you been standing here all day long doing nothing?" "Because no one has hired us," they answered. He said to them, "You also go and work in my vineyard." When evening came, the owner of the vineyard said to his foreman, "Call the workers and pay them their wages, beginning with the last ones hired and going on to the first." The workers who were hired about 5 in the afternoon came, and each received a denarius. So when those came who were hired first, they expected to receive more. But each one of them also received a denarius. When they received it, they began to grumble against the landowner. "These who were hired last worked only an hour," they said, "and you have made them equal to us, who have borne the burden of the work and the heat of the day." But he answered one of them, "I'm not being unfair to you, friend. Didn't you agree to work for a denarius? Take your pay and go. I want to give the one who was hired last the same as I gave you. Don't I have the right to do what I want with my own money, or are you envious because I am generous?" So the last will be first, and then the first will be last. So, in my younger days, purely thinking from a secular standpoint, maybe somebody in this room could agree that they may have worked somewhere and then all of a sudden decided that they were worth more. I need to make more money. But in reality, you agreed to what the guy was paying you, and the guy was paying you that. It's just kind of like sports guys are the biggest at this. When they all of a sudden do better than what's expected, they want to renegotiate the contract. But I'm pretty sure that if they don't do as well as they were expected, I'm pretty sure they're not giving money back to the owners. So, the moral of the story is, I didn't know where my dad was in relationship with God, but the good news is this, is that it doesn't matter when you decide to do it. It's most important is you do decide to do it. And, as those of you who were at the internment know that I basically communicated that, God is always with you and he always keeps his promises. And so his promise is that as long as you have a relationship with him, doesn't matter if you're first or last. So, we're all here to celebrate my dad, and we're also here, of course, to support each other, which, of course, there are many, many verses, but, part of Galatians 6:2 is that we carry each other's burdens. So just the fact that you have created relationships with people and our friends and family and so forth, you're kind of buying into the contract that you will support each other, regardless of what happens. So, anyway, I just wanted to say, thank the Father, Heavenly Father, we thank you for my dad's life. As we gather to celebrate his life, may we find peace and comfort in all the memories we hold in our hearts. We know that for all that seek you, that you are a loving God and that this love is never taken away from us, even in earthly death. We know that you are always with us, never failing, and always keep your promises. All these things we pray in your Son's precious name, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Okay, thank you, Lance. Housekeeping item, for those of you who didn't see the sign outside, if you need to use the restrooms, it's kind of like around to my left, your right, and then just go towards the back in women's room and men's room on the corridor to the right. So, one of the things I always enjoyed about being on campus here is we used to attend a lot of football games and basketball games. So this brings back a lot of memories for me, especially since after I couldn't make Thursday and Saturday basketball games anymore. My dad took over season tickets and all that. So he and Faye, they enjoyed coming over here every weekend and did it for as long as he could. So here we are today. So John Wong, this is Faye's brother, and he's gonna come up here and welcome our guest on behalf of Faye.
Hi. Thank you for all that, you guys. Once again, I am John, Faye's brother, and Faye's asked me to read this because it's going to be difficult for her to read. It's difficult for me right now. Thank you all for gathering together for the celebration of life. A really big thank you to Larry for arranging this event. I am sure Lincoln will appreciate the venue. Lincoln and I were on a cruise heading to Hawaii from San Francisco on March 9th. Lincoln got sick and we were advised to disembark at the first port of call, which was Hilo on March 14th. He was admitted into ICU at Hilo. Larry, Lindsay James, and Lance flew in the next day to be with Lincoln. They got to visit and be with their father one more time. A really big thank you to the boys in arranging for their family to visit with Lincoln as well. Sadly, Lincoln passed away on March 20th peacefully with his family by his side. Last but not least, a very special thank you to Lindsay James for trekking from one end of the island to the next to the other side to bring my siblings their one last visit with Lincoln and Hilo. Thank you. We got to visit with Lincoln one more time. Lindsay also stayed with me in Hilo and made all arrangements to bring their father back to the Bay Area, a place Lincoln loved and cherished. Mr. Chu, my love, aloha for now until we meet again. Thank you always. And that's it.
Thank you, John. Okay, you think I'd have memorized this by now since I've written it about 4 or 5 times. Yeah, okay. I look around the room and I see people who were his tennis friends. One family is here, a couple families are here, the Kim family. Different, at least 3 families at that table from the Kim family. I grew up as a little kid, basically living on the tennis courts in Chinatown. So this was kind of all second family to us. And when you're a tennis family, everybody has to learn how to play. So we all did to some degree or another. Then there are people who are part of his work life. At that time, it was what do they call it? California Department of Transportation. It was down there on Oak and Franklin. Eventually moved over to Oak and Franklin, and they then moved over to Oakland, where it was California Department of Transportation. It was Division of Highways before. Then became the Department of Transportation, Caltrans. Anyway, so he's got work friends here. Of course, they're all the relatives, from Chu's side of the family and Wong's side of the family, and then there are people here for all his hobbies and things like that. He traveled. He played bridge. Later on in life, he skied. You can imagine that. 70 years old, and we were out there, and he was skiing. So. Can't remember, every one of his different things, but ballroom dancing was really big because he'd come over to Marin and we'd have dinner or lunch at his favorite place in Sausalito, just some little cafe, Bayside Cafe right there on the water there. And then he'd immediately say, okay, 1:30, I got my dance class or my ballroom dancing, so that was a big activity for him. So I have my cousin here today, Robert, and he will just kind of tie all that together and give you a little biography of my dad's life. Oh, Robert, you're at the back of the room, so I got to stretch this, right? We have Randy Lim over there, and he's a professional producer and all that. And I should have had a floor director here giving me the stretch sign.
Hi everyone, I'm the nephew, one of his nephews. I don't have to push that button, right? Okay. I'll just give a brief biography of Uncle Lincoln's life. He was born on January 12, in 1932 in San Francisco, to Zhongchun Chu and Iman Ji. He was one of the 6 children. He was the 5th one of the 6 children, and he was the 3rd of the 4 boys. He went to Commodore Stockton Elementary School in San Francisco, then went to Francisco Junior High, which is, and then the Commerce High School. I can't remember Commerce High School because it was no longer exists. The other 2 I know been there. From there, he went on to University of California, He got his Bachelor of Science degrees from civil engineering, and I guess eventually he also completed a Master of Public Administration from Golden Gate University after he was working full-time. He joined, as Larry says, he joined the California Highway Division, now Caltrans, of course. And he retired as district chief in 1995. Except for 17 months of service with the Naval Construction Battalion, the Seabees, he had his his 40 years Caltrans career included designing, supervising and managing the design and construction of many of the Northern California highway projects that a lot of them we're driving on today. Just before he retired from Caltrans, he bought Always Travels with 2 other partners. And this travel agency kept him busy for the next 30 years after he retires and doing something he really liked. As Larry says, Uncle Lincoln is an avid sports fan of San Francisco Giants, Warriors, and the 49ers. But most of all, he is a super fan for Cal, basketball and football. I think he holds almost 60 years of season tickets for the Cal programs. As Larry says, he learned how to play tennis since his as a teenager, and he competed most of his adult time in the U.S. Tennis Association's tournaments at level 4.5. I presume that's pretty top levels, yes. And also in the inter club competition in the Bay Areas, including also biannually in Seattle's, Vancouver, as well as LA. He was the winner of several San Francisco Chinese national tennis tournaments in men's doubles. Some of his, 2 of his partners, I guess, is here today with us, Judge Frank Kim and Roger Kim. As Larry says, once tennis become less competitive and more recreational, Uncle Lincoln picked up skiing as additional adventurous activities. My understanding is he enjoyed it a lot, and especially when he found out he gets substantial discount as a lift ticket after he turned 70. Uncle Lincoln also involved in a lot of its professional and civic organizations. He was a member of the American Society of Civil Engineers, his profession, and associate in the Bay Area Government Citizen Forums, on the board of the Bay Area Tennis League, the San Francisco Chinese Tennis Club, and the committee for Troop Number 3, Boy Scout of America, when the kids were members of the Boy Scout. He has served as an advisory director of the Northern California Tennis Association, and was also a part-time instructor at the City College of San Francisco. In 1995, Uncle Lincoln was introduced to Fay Wong by mutual friends. Both of them was passionate with ballroom dancing and various vacation cruise. He affectionately called her as Miss Faye, which stuck. They were married in 2000 and were blessed with over 23 years of love and devotion to each other. He was hospitalized during the March cruise to Hawaii with Faye and her family. It was apparently his third cruise in 6 months. Then he passed away peacefully several days later on March 20th in Hawaii with most of his children at his side at the rightful age of 92. It was his way of leaving this world on top of the world, doing what he loved best. I guess on May 28th, 2024, Uncle Lincoln was given military honor and is now interred in the California Central Veterans Cemetery at Seaside, California. This is just a short, brief biography of his illustrious career and life. Okay.
Thank you, Robert. As you can tell, he lived to travel. You know, Victor here is one of his partners, and you know, I always used to kid him about why he started a travel agency, because it didn't seem like they were making money. They may not have been losing money, but they certainly weren't making a lot of money. Because it was a post-Caltrans hobby job. And then I found out that when you're a travel agent, you get all these perks. You know, it's to hand out to all your customers and say, well, try this and let us know. Or you know, it's to promote your business. And one day he told me he was using these things for himself too. So, you know, that was the whole deal, and that's what retirement's all about. You know, my wife Taz is always talking about how we got to start traveling if I ever retire. But yeah, she's going to Costa Rica this summer without me. But yeah, that's more current. But if I look back, I've got to look back 60, 65, 70 years. And there are a couple families that we as kids were always very close to. And sorry, I gotta keep that on only because it could be the people who are delivering our lunch. But it wasn't them. But, you know, we, about 2, 3, 4, maybe even more times a year, we used to go into Stockton and visit, you know, Judge Frank Kim and his family. His wife Pat was here with us, and you know, we grew up with our 3 kids, and then they have 4 kids, and it was just kind of like the Brady Bunch plus 2 extra parents, so that wasn't a bad thing. But yeah, we used to have a lot of fun going in there. My dad has continued to go into Stockton all the way up until, I don't know, maybe about 4 or 5 months ago. So I thought it was fitting that the person who started off the remembrance of my dad would be to have Judge Kim come up and share some of his memories with us. And he came all the way out from Stockton today, so, you know, thank you. I know it's a long drive. Got a little bit of help with, I guess Curtis, I understand help drive. Uncle Frank, as we affectionately called him, plus he did our wedding too.
Good afternoon. Faye, Larry, Lindsay, Lance, relatives, and friends. My name is Frank Kim, and I'm I'm better known as the other half of a tennis partnership of Lincoln. I play the forehand court. On Tuesday, March the 19th, in the late afternoon hours, I was relaxing at home, and I saw an email sent earlier that morning from my cousin, Roger Butch Kim, that Lincoln was gravely ill, was on a cruise ship with Faye, and now at the Hilo Hospital. I then read a telephone voicemail from Faye that Lincoln wanted to talk to me. So at about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I placed a call to Faye's mobile number. And Faye put me on to Lincoln. Lincoln's voice sounded labored, but we were able to carry on a conversation. And his parting words were, "Uncle Frank," I'm only a year older, "Uncle Frank, I want to come visit you in April." And my last words to Lincoln was, "God willing, I look forward to your visit." Sadly, we lost Lincoln in the early morning hours of the next day. That's just a moment in time of a friendship that lasted 75 years. My comments today would not complete if I do not mention Jane Seed, the mother of Larry, Lindsay, and Lance. Jane was a 16-year-old girl, and in our carefree teenage years, with a group of teenagers involving Lincoln, myself, and others that hung around the tennis court at the Chinese playground. And this was all during the summer months. In my high school year, when I would stay for 2 weeks at a time with my Uncle Tommy and Aunt Mary and their family. Lincoln and Jane and our friendship grew in 1955 when I started law school. I got out of the Korean War by then on the GI Bill. I began to court a graduate student from a nearby college, Stanford, to be said. And Lincoln and Jane met Pat, and I hope they liked her, because the four of us, went out to dinner together. One of the places was Pietro's on Clay Street by the financial district. One of my favorite places. Unfortunately, they tore that down to make way for the Transamerica Towers. Lincoln and Jane, Pat and I, we also went dancing, ballroom dancing, I've never been there, but it was a lovely evening in Larkspur, and the four of us were dancing away, Jane and Lincoln and Pat and me, and I'm trying to make out with Pat. So after grad school, Pat goes back to Hong Kong and Macau. I got another 8 years to finish law school. So when I finished law school, I said the first priority is never mind the bar exams. I'm going to forego the bar exams. I'm going to fly to Hong Kong in pursuit of this gal, Pat. I was just a penniless pauper, didn't have any money. Of course, we didn't need much, but didn't have much. So I borrowed the money from my sister for the passage, and relatives like Uncle Tommy and Aunt Mary, and good friends like Lincoln and Jane gave me generous lycée to wish me well. I spent 3 months in Hong Kong. Some good, some bad. But the good part is that Pat and I got married. And upon Pat's return to San Francisco, our first apartment was on Clay and Larkin Street. And right across the street was Lincoln and Jane. And Lincoln and Jane would come over frequently to sample Pat's cooking. She was learning how to cook, and the only thing she could cook was Portuguese pork chops. And they were brave souls to try the cooking. And during the years that we went from San Francisco into Stockton, where I got a job as a deputy district attorney, Lincoln and Jane would come in and visit us, along with Larry and some of the kids. And likewise, when we had Karen and Allison, we would go out to visit Lincoln and Jane, and we would stay at their Daly City house. And I knew that Larry and my Karen were very precocious child. At maybe 2, 3, they were fluent in the Chinese language. Unbelievable. And as the years go by, Lincoln and Jane came to the Kims, milestones in life. When I passed the bar exams, there was a party and Lincoln and Jane showed up. When I was appointed in 1971, that's 53 years ago, to the Stockton Municipal Court, Jane and Lincoln were sitting with my family in the courtroom, and they were as happy as my family for my good fortune. And again, during my investiture to the Superior Court in 1979, Jane and Lincoln again was sitting with my family. As the children got older, and I was the officiate for Taz and Larry's wedding. And I hope they still remember that. Okay. Pat and I had our 50th wedding anniversary in 2009. And up until that point, Pat and I were so happy that Lincoln has found love again with a marriage to Miss Fay. He always called her Miss Fay, and I know he was deeply in love with her, and they were great companions together traveling, and his life took a new meaning. On my 50th wedding anniversary, Lincoln, Fay, and Jane, all three of them, they came to my wedding anniversary, and they wrote into our commemorative book. I took the liberty of photocopying what each party said about our relationship, and I want to share that with you. I won't read all of it because some are not pertinent to this occasion. The first one I would like to read is from the mother of the boys, Jane Ching. It's hard to believe my friendship with your dad has been a span of 60 years. And he goes on to she knew all of my problems in Hong Kong and Macau in chasing Pat, so I bypassed that. Then in 1966, Jane went to Hong Kong and she visited Macau. And she went to visit Pat's father and Pat's aunt, and said of Pat's home that she grew up in that it was one of those old European homes. It's just not like the movies when your dad tells and dramatizes his experiences. We were neighbors for a short time, but they lived in San Francisco. Right across the street in a very small, rather dark apartment. Your mom was brave enough to cook for us in a matchbox-sized kitchen when she was just learning how to cook Portuguese pork chops. And then it goes on other things, and she signed it, always in my thoughts, Auntie Jane. Now that was from Jane Ching. I will read very briefly, I won't take much of your time, a writing that Lincoln wrote with Fay. Janie and I first met Frank way back in the early 1950s through Uncle Tommy and Auntie Mary. That initial friendship developed into quite a bond, particularly during the period when Frank was courting Pat. I recall the four of us dining at Pietro's, an Italian restaurant on Clay Street in the financial district. The waiter served us with bottles of wine on their head while singing folk songs. Then there was a Saturday night outdoor dance at the Larkspur Town and Country Club. Unfortunately, both venues are long gone. but the memories and the wonderful memories lingers on. When Frank brought back home from Macau, they moved to an apartment across the street from us on Larkin Street. We occasionally had dinners together, and I remember Pat's Portuguese pork chops. Say, Pat, did you cook anything other than pork chops? After a short stay in San Francisco, they moved to Stockton. And up to the late 70s, we made numerous trips and remained close even to the extent that the children, Larry, Lindsay, my Karen, and Allison, bathed together. I like to think that we were environmentalists back then by conserving water. And he goes through some things about a book that he read about one of my trials, and I won't go into that. And he closes by congratulating us again on our 50th anniversary, and he signed it, "Love, always, Fanny and Lincoln." Now, you have heard both sides of our friendship. All the years that I have known Lincoln, he has always been a family man. First and foremost was his family. Pat and I are blessed to have the friendship of Lincoln and the Chu family. We are certain that his descendants will carry on the legacy of Lincoln. Thank you, Lincoln, for all the good times we shared together.
Thank you, Uncle Fran. Well, I mentioned earlier that, or Robert actually mentioned it, that we used to go up to Seattle every other year for tennis. It was inter-club, so a group of people from the San Francisco Chinese Tennis Club would pack their bags and then end up playing up, a group of people from the Seattle area. Predating all that, which is how I think it got started, were two families, brothers, Danny Lim, Winnie Lim, and they had been friends with my father probably going back into the 50s sometime. And they too have maintained a relationship for, decades, we're talking, 70 plus years. Unfortunately, Uncle Winnie, as we also refer to him, was not able to travel down for this. Neither was Uncle Danny, his brother. But in behalf of the Lim family, Randy, Winnie's oldest son, is here to speak in their behalf. Thank you for flying down from Seattle for the day. And he's also helping with the video.
Hi everyone, my name is Randy Lim. I am the son of Winnie and Fanny Lim from Seattle, and I'm here to represent my father. Dad has known Lincoln for more than 70 years. They met playing at the Chinese Nationals tennis tournament in San Francisco, Chinatown. Winnie was drawn to Lincoln's grace and dignified manner on and off the court, and they have been best of friends ever since. My dad would like to say this. Lincoln traveled annually to play in the Seattle and Vancouver, BC inter-city senior tennis matches, something we looked forward to, but despite he was from San Francisco. We think the Canadians overlooked his place of residence because they thought they would win an easy point for their team. But that was not the case. It was just the opposite. Lincoln was the master at hitting the ball so soft that sometimes the wind would stop the ball mid-air. The ball would drop like a drop shot every single time he hit it. It was deceptive, wonderful, and frustrating to his opponents. He was our secret weapon and an inaugural part of the team, creating laughs, joy, and always great conversation. Even though we didn't see each other as often as I would have liked, we stayed close through old-fashioned phone calls. We talked about friends, family, tennis, and even football. One time I bet Link a dinner on the Cal Berkeley UW game here in Seattle. He accepted, not knowing that the game had already been played. The game was televised a day late. I called him the next day to tell him that Washington had won and he had owed me dinner. We laughed and laughed. I never collected the dinner. I was lucky to have a friend like Lincoln who was always there for me. Just 6 months ago, even though he wasn't feeling well, he surprised me, flying up for my 90th birthday. Thank you, Faye, for accompanying Lincoln to Seattle. It meant the world to me. That night, he made me laugh. We talked about the many fond memories and fun times we had over 7 decades. Lincoln, I will miss you dearly. You will never be forgotten. I love you, Winnie. End of message. And to Uncle Lincoln from me, I feel the same way. I love you and will miss you, Randy.
You know, earlier when the food delivery guy came in, somebody had mentioned Stanford. You know, one of the things I'm glad I don't see today is anybody in red. Because if you've ever been to a Cal football or basketball game, the whole crowd would just start chanting, "Take off that red shirt, take off that red shirt." So I think that would have been kind of fun, although at the expense of the person who came in the red shirt. You know, one of the people that I've met recently, fairly recently in my life, is Colin Chu. He's Faye's brother-in-law. And I did not realize he was such an avid Cal fan also. But, you know, he had shown me how he had a picture of my dad up in the Chancellor's box at UC Memorial Stadium for a football game. So you're talking about luxury boxes right on the 50-yard line. So that was a special moment for him. I didn't realize they had done that. But yeah, next person I'd like to call up is Colin and share his remembrances.
I'm Colin, and I'm known as Lincoln's little brother. We are brothers by different mothers, but not the same father. Before I met Lincoln, I knew him by reputation. Several of my friends said, "Hey, you should go down to state and play with Lincoln." And the first time I met Lincoln was he was Faye's +1 at my mom's 70th party. And they started a relationship very shortly after, and he's always been part of our family, and we regard him as family the entire time. Once we got to know him, he came and supported me at all my USTA matches. First joined the men's team at Golden Gate Park, and the captain was Art Gallegos, and he said, "Did you know Lincoln Chu?" And I said, "Well, I know of him, but I don't know him." Right after that, Lincoln and Faye got together, and Art came to a tennis social at Westlake, and Lincoln was there, and Lincoln was his boss. And that was when Art grabbed me and read me the riot act. I came to learn that Lincoln, or actually many of my circle of friends, Ed Dare, Lily Tate, and all were all subordinates of Lincoln. I didn't realize he was that big a personality. I met Carl Mendoza, he was a USTA official, and I was talking to him and says, you know, I want my brother-in-law to be rated 3035 so we can play in tournaments together. And Carl said, what's his name? I said, Lincoln Shoot. Yeah, 4 or 5, he ain't gonna get anything lower than that. I found Lincoln to be an extremely caring person. He's caring and giving. He took on the task of taking care of my father-in-law. And my father-in-law was a very demanding and difficult person to deal with. He's commonly known as a PIA. And if you don't know what PIA, that's a pain in the ass. If it weren't for Lincoln, I think Faye would have smothered him with a pillow and my wife would have been his accomplice. Lincoln was incredibly generous. Every time we go out to dinner, he would always grab the bill before I could get to it. The one time he got really pissed was when Rob beat him to the check. And he was not happy about that. Lincoln always kicked back all his commissions, all the travel we went. I said, you know, you gotta pay rent. That's ridiculous. You know, he spoiled my father-in-law so much that my father-in-law knew every menu of every restaurant in town. And one day, my wife and I took him out to Nori Teriyaki, and my father-in-law said, I want the free fish head soup. Excuse me, I'm not Lincoln. You're not getting free fish head soup. Lincoln loved to travel, and we were able to do a lot of ski trips, and I think the most memorable trip was our trip to Machu Picchu together. And after the trip, I was able to catch a ship from Callao back to San Diego without having to fly north. He wanted to go to Rio, so I found him a cruise that went around the Horn to Buenos Aires and then up to Rio. For the cruise cost less than the flight, so he was happy about that. Lincoln was an absolute sports nut. He was a season ticket holder for everything, and we're fortunate that we get invited to Chancellor Box every year for a football game. And so one year, we got there early in the hostess, and we're talking. I said, hey, my brother-in-law's way down here. And she said, hey, we got an extra room. You want to invite him up? And Lincoln's at the camera then. He found out how the other half was, not us. He was always very proud of all his family's accomplishments, his 3 sons, his grandkids. And he was super proud when my daughter got her PE in civil engineering. My family and I will miss the camaraderie we had for the last almost 3 decades, and I cherish the moments we had with him. Thank you.
Thank you, Colin. There was something I was gonna say that you triggered me on, but I'm blanking on it right now, but that's what happens when you're collecting, well, I'm not collecting Medicare, but I'm certainly at Medicare age. So maybe it'll come back to me. But, you know, we're all gathered here today amongst friends and family, and, you know, we've had certainly some of his closest friends, lifetime friends, share their remembrances. But, you know, open mic time. Would anybody here like to, you know, I'll come over to you, so you don't have to like stand up here. If you raise your hand, I'll raise your mic on. Oh, okay.
Hey everyone, my name is John, and I think it's just absolutely beautiful to see all the different people that Lincoln was able to have such an impact for. And so to me, he was Gideon. And I just want to keep it quick, but it's so incredible to hear all the different stories that everyone has with him. To me, he was the grandpa that was always there. He was someone that put everyone before him, especially family. And just a quick story, up until the end, I was grateful to be able to be with him in Hilo. And the thing that really struck me was even in his last days where he was obviously laid up, the thing that was most important to him was bringing a smile to everyone that was there, including the nurses. So that was just the person that he was, and I will miss him deeply.
Thanks, John.
I'll come up.
Okay. It's okay, I can bring mine there too.
Oh.
I feel like one of those talk show hosts. Hopefully we won't be throwing things at each other.
Is it president of the chair? Is there president of the chair?
Lincoln was a very good friend, and he was a very good friend to my entire family. I remember long ago when my kids were very young, Lincoln, about Christmas time, Lincoln would come over and he would bring gifts to my kids. And the gifts were always some kind of Cal Berkeley athletic gear, like a sweatshirt or a jacket or a t-shirt. And the first couple of years, my kids would say, "Who is that guy? You know, who's that man that comes over and gives us Christmas presents?" And we would tell them, "Well, he's just a friend from work." And wow, what a good lesson and example that he made for our kids. And later on, years later, every Christmas, we would tell our kids that Lincoln's going to come over. And they would kind of get excited, you know, because they thought they were going to get something that was pretty cool. Kim and I were fortunate that we were able to go on several cruise ship adventures with Lincoln and Faye, and I always thought that Lincoln was just a great guy to go on cruises with, and that was because of his personality. He's very sociable, and on cruises you meet a lot of new people. And Lincoln was kind of like the ultimate icebreaker. You know, he'd make friends very quickly, very easily. He knew what to say, just what to say. And, you know, after a few days on the cruise, Kim and I would be walking with Lincoln on the boat, and we would seemingly meet all these random people, and they would know Lincoln, you know, what the heck is going on? You know, how come all these people know Lincoln? And I think part of that was he played bridge, and so he went to the bridge club, and I think that was part of why he met so many people. And later on cruises, when Lincoln got older, he slowed down quite a bit physically, but mentally he was still sharp, and best of all, his personality was just the same, just very friendly and sociable. And I thought that at that age, that was pretty amazing. And I surmised that it was probably, hereditary. It's in his genes. He had that good, long life gene. And I think that kind of runs in the Chu family. So for all you Chus out there, I think you should count yourself lucky that you have those good genes. And Another thing that I'm very grateful for is that Lincoln was shared with my family probably one of the happiest events that my family has ever had. And that was just last year when my daughter got married. And I really appreciate Lincoln and Faye just taking making the effort to travel to the wedding and to just to be a witness to my daughter's marriage. And that really meant a lot to me, and it meant a lot to my daughter as well. And well, finally, it's kind of hard for me to believe that Lincoln is no longer with us. He was a good friend of mine for most of my adult life, and I couldn't have asked for or couldn't have hoped for a better friend. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, they talk about our family having long lives. Got two aunts that made it into their 90s. My dad, one of my uncles, into their 90s. I have another uncle right now that's still alive. He's 101. So yeah, we had a lot of life, which is probably why I'm still working. Because the original retirement funds are not going to last that long. But I got Carson here to help me. Anyway, would anybody else like to share any memories about my dad? Yeah, I've got a hand up back there.
Hi, my name is Ruby Louie, and Lincoln was a colleague of mine. We both worked at Caltrans, the Department of Transportation, for many years, and I'm not surprised about who Lincoln was at work, because just hearing all the stories about his personal life does not surprise me, because he was exactly the same kind of person at work. Very loyal, very comforting, and he always was a great mentor for a lot of people. And that's one of the things about Lincoln, is that he was very well respected with the local agencies that he worked with. He was the deputy district director for all the project development during his career, and many of the locals really respected him, and he got a lot of things done through the locals because of who he was. And a lot of us were lucky to see him during his retirement, because we would try to get together every few months, and we would all have lunch together. So we're gonna all really miss him. I personally will miss him, because he was a great mentor to me during my career. So your family should be very proud of who he was, even though sometimes you don't know all the details, what he did on the job, but he was a great guy and such an awesome person. He's gonna be truly missed.
Thank you. You know, I guess one of the things that you can kind of think about, well, what impact did somebody have, especially at work with the people they work with? And my dad was always really proud of the fact that two of his colleagues went on to lead their own agencies. So you had Diane Steinhauser, who was head of Transportation Authority of Marin, and Dennis Mulligan, who is now the head of the Highway Bridge and Transportation District. So those were people he always asked about, and he was always really proud of the people he worked with. Anyway, anybody else like to share something? Here we go. Roger Kim, his old doubles partner, championship
Chinese nationals.
I'm Polish.
He used to go by Butch, and that was when we were kids, but I wasn't sure if, you know, that was something that he had outgrown.
Why don't you hold it for me? Okay. Lincoln was a big part of our family. He was family. And at Chinese playground, like Larry said, every weekend we were down there playing tennis. And we go to Helena for lunch, and it always included Lincoln's family, even though there's a bunch of us. And we always had a good time. And one thing that I remember about Larry when he was about 5 years old, I'll mention him because, you know, he's doing all of his work, so I thought people should know about Larry. When he's about 5 or 6 years old, our family was going to go down to Disneyland. And we said, hey, Larry, you want to go with us? 5 years old. And he said, he didn't hesitate. Oh, Disneyland, I'll go. And Jane just had teary eyes. She thought, well, he's not going to go when we get on the bus or get in the car. He didn't hesitate at all. He just joined us, had a great time. I think Jane held that against us for many years. Okay, but getting back to Lincoln now, he was patient enough to have me as a partner for several tournaments in the Chinese Nationals. There's 10 years difference, and he was willing to put up with me for those 3 tournaments. And I learned how to play doubles with him. He didn't have to have a big serve. You didn't have to have a big serve, because Lincoln, like Winnie said, did not have a big serve. And sometimes I think his serve was a big advantage because his opponents would be watching that ball coming over the net, and by the time it landed, he was probably up at the net. He was that quick. And then he also was great at the net. He had, you know, he was like a tiger. I didn't have to worry about the ball getting by him because he knew I didn't like playing doubles, so he cut off everything before it reached me. And so that's how I learned to play doubles from Lincoln. Okay? And he was a great person, patient, and he was willing to put up with me. Okay?
Oh, there's more now. I mean, they were equals because, you know, you have 2 different styles of game. And you know, which was the one that people really tried to avoid. Because he, you know, I think
Hey,
still.
Larry, the ball never got to me.
Yeah, we used to joke about it. His serve was still so slow that he used to beat the ball to the net. And that's what he's referring to. But you know, I've played doubles with my dad. Sometimes, if you don't have cat-like reflexes, the other side, you can just see they are just winding up, just ready to just pound on the ball. And you're standing there and you're wondering, all right, you know, the ball is just coming at you literally, you know, at that time with wood rackets about 70, 75 miles an hour. You're less than, you know, 55 feet away. So anyway, anybody else? Say hi, Uncle Winnie.
Dad.
Yeah. Kira. This is Kira, my daughter, my dad's oldest grandchild.
Sorry, this might be a little hard to get through. So, as mentioned, I'm the oldest of the grandkids, and as John said earlier, for us, we didn't call him Grandpa in English, we called him Yaya, which is paternal grandpa in Chinese. And as the oldest of the grandkids, I got the most amount of time with him. And I'm so grateful for that. Growing up both as a kid, in high school, in college, post-college, we would regularly, as Dad mentioned earlier, have brunches at Bayside Cafe in Sausalito on regular Sundays before we'd go to ballroom dance. And on days where we didn't do that, and even days where we did, he could not come empty-handed. I'm sure many of you have also experienced this as well with him. But for us, and for me in particular, I think I am the only vegetarian in this family. And so he would specifically bring me my favorite Chinese buns, which is a red bean bun and a raisin bun, and Auntie Faye would also bring those for me as well. And it was something that I always appreciated, that he was always thinking of that. And as John mentioned, he was always there for life events, for sports games growing up. I played softball and still play ultimate frisbee, and he actually came to one of mine and my husband's tournaments last summer in San Francisco. He couldn't make it down to the field, but it was at the Golden Gate Polo Fields, and so he sat up high. We could see him in his cowl jacket. We could wave to him from the field with my mom and with Auntie Faye, and it was just a great thing to know that he was there and he was watching. I think if you've been watching the slideshow, you've probably seen it. In 2015, after I graduated college, his graduation present for the grandkids when we graduated was a trip to go somewhere, because of course he loves to travel and we love the opportunity to do so. So for my trip, we went to China. Unlike my dad, I did not grow up speaking Chinese. It was not my first language, and it wasn't something I really studied until I was in high school and college. Unfortunately, they didn't offer Cantonese, they only offered Mandarin. So that's what I learned, and simplified characters for reading and writing. And so from high school to college, I went to school in the Boston area on the East Coast. I ended up minoring in Chinese. My tones are still awful. I don't feel like I can speak well. But when I was in school and on the other side of the country, we would write letters regularly. Part of it in English, part of it in Chinese, because my vocab wasn't enough to, tell about everything from what was going on in just in Chinese. But it was really great because, in some ways, it was a little old school, but the best thing was to go to the mailroom and have a letter and to write back and forth. So when we went on our trip to China, I got to practice a little bit more of my Chinese there, and unfortunately since then my language has been suffering a little because I don't practice it every day anymore, but I would still get to practice a little bit of it when we would visit and with other family members like Uncle John. But for that trip we spent 2.5 weeks. Mom joined us as well because Dad didn't want to come travel with us, so it was me and Mom, and Mom also loves to travel, and so we got to have the joy of traveling with Leah and with Auntie Faye and my mom to a bunch of different cities in China. We went to Cambodia, we went to Singapore, and one of the things that I started doing, and that was the first trip I did it for, was I did a travel scrapbook journal. Every single day, writing in it, adding photos, adding little things that we collected during the trip. And since then, he's borrowed it multiple times. Different times he'd say, "Can I borrow your travel journal? I want to reread it." Just to go through that experience again and have that. And then later, I made a point of doing that with other journals. And so I'd go on a trip, and afterwards he'd be like, "Can I read your travel journal?" So he'd borrow all my different ones from different trips, and we talk about it and talk about places that I've gone that he hasn't, or ones that he really enjoyed. And hopefully I'll get to at some point that would have liked to do more travel with him, but excuse me. Feeling very lucky that in some ways, I guess, you could technically call it the last travel with him, of being able to see him in Hilo. And we can have that last visit. Sorry.
All right. Can you raise hands? Huh? Oh, okay.
Yeah, I didn't plan to speak at this, but I do want to share with everyone just how wonderful it was to have Lincoln as father-in-law. He was so welcoming and warm and committed to really being involved in our lives from the beginning and supportive in so many ways. And I just even remember him flying out. Kira was a early arrival while I was on vacation in Boston, and making a point of flying out to Boston to to be with us and to support us. And he was always supportive. And remembering our birthdays, remembering daughters-in-law birthdays, not just sons and not just grandchildren, but how he welcomed us as daughters-in-law too. He was a wonderful, wonderful father-in-law, a wonderful grandfather to our kids, and always being there and always checking in and making sure, we could get busy in life and lose track. And he was always there calling and making sure not too much time would pass before we would be able to be together again. And I was glad that I was able, with the family, to also be with him one more time. And he was a blessing on our lives. So I just want to take that moment to say I'm so glad that we had Lincoln and Faye as part of our family. And thank you all for coming today to celebrate his life with us.
Anybody else? It's kind of scanning,
Hi everyone, sorry, gonna be very sniffling, but my name is Marissa. I am the fourth grandchild of Yaya. For those of you who don't know, we also have an older brother. So Nicholas was our first born in our family. This is really hard for me because I didn't get the chance to see him in a helo before he passed. He was super supportive, and one of the reasons why I didn't make it out was because I was in the middle of my finals week, and he supported me so much that I wanted to make sure I could see through those finals and make sure that I could continue on the journey that I was on in my academics. But it's so hard because sometimes I feel like I'm regretting it and regretting my decisions to not get to see him. But he was so supportive, and I knew that he didn't have any regrets that I didn't get to make it out. Jono was able to get us on a FaceTime with him, and it reminded me of all the times that we got to spend. And like everyone has talked about, he loved his travel, and I think I started to take after him in that regards because when he was telling me a little bit about his travels out of the country, I took it upon myself to go with my friends to Mexico for the first time in 2022. And every year since then has only been 2 years, but the goal is to at least travel outside the country at least once, to explore, to kind of figure things out, like what other cultures are like. And food is a big part of my life, and I feel like the only way you can really learn about everything in life is through food, through the culture. And I know that Yaya taught me a lot about that. We went to a lot of cuisines. He would teach me the Chinese version, the Chinese words of each of the foods that we were eating, and a little bit about that. Because our family lives so far away from San Francisco, we didn't always get the chance to see him whenever we wanted to. So I was very grateful for all the times that he was able to come down to us as well in Morgan Hill, which is about an hour drive from San Francisco. So I also wanted to thank Auntie Faye for making sure that he was able to make it down, as well as having us hosted at their home as well.
Is there a hand back there?
Yeah.
All right. Just hand this.
I don't know, where do you want? Hi everyone, I'm Chris Maris. I'm Ted Maris's son. To me, Lincoln was always Uncle Chew. I grew up around Uncle Chew, and that's who he was to me. As I grew up, went to Sacred Heart in the city. My first job was at Always Travel, and I see you, Victor. I remember it was my junior year, summer break. We'd always get Carousel for lunch, good Chinese restaurant. A lot of good memories, but it was my first job, so I'll never forget that. And Uncle Chu was always there. I mean, all these sentiments that I'm hearing, he was always there. He never left, and he's always going to be with us. So one of our things that I can remember, it was an annual or semi-annual or quarterly meeting over at Noriega Teriyaki House in the city, and he always paid. He'd always find a way to pay. He tried to slip a fast one on him, but he knows the servers, he knows the people. He would never let you pay. So, unfortunately, I didn't get that chance to have that last dinner with him. And it kind of irks me to this day because I was supposed to see him this year. But in hindsight, what I feel like happened was after hearing his passing, I'm a SWAT team member on the San Francisco Sheriff's Office, and we were supposed to be shooting at the airport that day. I'll let that pass. But we were supposed to be shooting at the airport that day. We have a range out there, and it got canceled. And we train a lot with UCPD SWAT team. We ended up over here at this campus. And for you alumni, for you alumni that are a part of this campus and know about that shooting range, it's right underneath the pavilion. And I feel like that was his way of saying goodbye, because I still was at his home. And even though we didn't get to go out to eat, we still shared that. Just that time together. And it truly means something, because this is from the heart, and I know my dad wasn't able to be here today. Uncle Chu is my dad's best friend. And unfortunately, my dad lost two of his best friends this year, so it was hard for him anytime I would talk to him about Uncle Chu to express in words, because there was a lot of anger and frustration. But I think we should all reflect on this day as not only a celebration of life, but the memories that we have and cherish with Uncle Chu. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. I'm glad you were able to come out and represent your family. Ted is open in Kauai now, so. Okay, our last speaker is going to be my brother, Lindsay. And the other day, he had asked me, do you want this short or do you want me to filibuster? And I'd say my response at this point is, you're the only one standing between everybody and lunch. So let's see how well his critical thinking skills are.
Thank you, Larry. Brilliant introduction. My name is Lindsay, and because we're not in the South, I must be in some kind of trouble, because the only time we hear first name, middle name is either our parents are yelling at us for something, or we've committed a crime on the news. They always use the guy's full name. So today, I don't know why, my brothers are Larry, Lance, and then there's Lindsay James. So I wanted to thank all of you for coming. I know that a lot of you came from far away. Oh, side. Oh, okay. I try to see as many people as I can and meet as many people as I can, but I know that I've been falling behind. I have talked with people from Stockton-ish, Sacramento-ish, Washington-ish, and Hawaii-ish. So I know that people have come a long ways to be here. Southern California, who knows where these people are coming from, but I've at least talked with them. And so thank you for coming. And more importantly, I think all of you need to thank the speakers, because every minute that they spoke to you is one less minute that you'd have to hear from me. The food is here, I guess, and so for me, I just wanted to let everyone know that the celebration of life, we all need to take every single day. As someone who has been suspended 4 times this year, and I know that they're threatening my job, and my father passing away, as I tell people now, between my job and my father, is that you need to be better to people while you have the chance, because there's going to come a time where you're not going to have that chance, and it's going to be too late. So I have a lot of enemies, and I know that between the enraged fathers and jealous husbands, I can catch a bullet at any time. So if you can remember anything that I say for today, it's that life is extremely simple. It may not be easy, but it's extremely simple. So I will turn this back over to Larry so that we can all start eating.
As all the Cal grads know, that tells all the water. You know, in my lifetime, they have never been to the Rose Bowl. So, could have. They did win the National Basketball Championship in 1959, but have done nothing since. So, Dad, if there is now any divine intervention, you can apply from your end. Maybe we'll still see it in our lifetime. So, echo Lindsay's comments. Everyone, thank you for being here. We have a fruit buffet in the back, and feel free to mix and mingle. And Dad, we love you. We're gonna miss you. Go Bears. Go Bears. I guess we just kind of start in. Lindsay, why don't you take your table out? Yeah. There are beverages outside on a cart. There's some water in the back. There's sodas.